No. Okay. So I'd like to start with a roll call. Who do we have on Zoom today? Who are these guys?
Oh, I'm sorry, two Rosie.
Oh, I have them, yeah.
And then there must be,
Hey, guys, can you please unmute yourself and identify yourself? Hmm. Joseph Palm? No. And Chip Murray, do you know Chip Murray?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to start with a presentation. Let's make it quick. So what I will be showing is, as you know, we contracted with this company called Ookla to collect data by driving most major streets in New Canaan and collecting data on cell signal for both voice and data for 4 major providers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and FirstNet. So they presented the executive summary for us, but it's not really in the shape or form that we can actually show it to the town to help people make decisions which cell providers they should go for, or make any other decisions, or also assist the Utilities Commission to make more informed decisions on how to improve cell signal, especially for the emergency services. So what we've done is we've taken the raw data from Ookla, processed it, and I was able to create maps that actually show in a much more straightforward fashion the quality of the signal around town. And I'll walk you through these maps and the tower information and things like that, so that people can make better decisions, and also the commission can make decisions based on these maps. And so this is the first time I'm actually showing this. And what I want to do is I want to get input on what else we should show on these maps, or maybe we should show less on these maps, or what is the best digestible format for the public, because we're planning to put these maps on the town website and make it available to everybody in town. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Share. Entire screen. All right, here we go. Okay, so the way these maps look is something like this. On the lower right-hand side, so this is a good side-by-side display. So let's say you have AT&T voice. I believe people will be more interested in voice rather than data, because this is not to service people's data needs as they're driving. Obviously, nobody really needs that. It's more like we want people to be reachable by phone, so that young moms with kids, or people taking care of aging parents, or especially emergency services. So voice is probably the most important thing. So this is side by side. On the left, you see AT&T voice coverage versus Verizon. So the maps show detailed information. And these are high resolution maps. I mean, you can literally zoom in to the to the level of individual homes. And you can see individual readings taken by Ookla. And the way Rich and I discussed the color here is that green is excellent, yellow is good, orange is poor, red is very poor, and where you see black, that's no signal. So using these maps, you can actually see.
May I raise a point of order?
Of course.
Normally, traditionally, legally, these meetings start with a quorum call. And to my knowledge, there was no call to quorum, nor is the meeting following the posted agenda. And I just want to state that for the record. This is Joe Paulo. Thank you.
Hi, Joe. It's a special meeting and we don't really have a quorum and we're not going to be taking any votes because we don't have a quorum. There'll be no votes. Yeah.
Well, all meetings in the town of New Canaan have a call to quorum. There is no quorum.
Quorum, you can't vote, Joe. They call the quorum. If there's no quorum, you can still meet, you just can't vote.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. So for instance, like if you zoom in on the left-hand side, in blue, I have towers. And if you hover over each tower, Rich and I figured it would be useful to give an ID for the tower and also number of contacts, number of connects that each tower had during the test. So for instance, there is a tower right here, and there were close to 4,000 connects. The reason why we actually wanted to see which towers are most connected to is to kind of see how do they correspond to coverage, because it's interesting that from the data, when I analyzed it, I realized that when they were driving around, there were a lot of connects actually happening to towns, to towers outside of our town. Even as far as Long Island, we were connecting to towers as far as Fort Salonga on Long Island. So it's a kind of a, we're planning to utilize artificial intelligence to analyze how to improve the coverage. But it's possible to maybe avoid having additional towers, because I know how people feel in town about towers, and maybe just creating repeaters for towers that are outside of town to improve the signal quality. But that, again, so that's the next step. This was phase one that Rich outlined for this project, is to just assess where we are today. And the picture is not great in terms of coverage. As you see, most of the stuff is orange or black. There's virtually no, well, there's very little green and yellow. So, you know, that pretty much paints a picture for us. Verizon is a little better. T-Mobile is a little worse. Let me just, okay, here we go. So if you compare it to T-Mobile, T-Mobile has giant blackout spots. So I wouldn't recommend residents of our town getting that. And that's pretty much where we got to with phase one. What do you think as far as readability of this? Like, if obviously we're going to put up some explanation of what people are looking at, you know, to help them kind of read these maps. But is this something that you think is going to be useful for the residents?
Just zoom in. They can just zoom in.
Yeah.
With their mouse and zoom in or.
Mm-hmm. They can just zoom in and see individual homes. like I can find my home on the map easy. There are numbers, so you can actually see your home number. And it's not that that part has that much utility in terms, because at your house you have Wi-Fi, so you're covered. It's more like to say, hey, you know what? Like I have young kids. Let's say I spend a lot of time at West. You know, I want to be reachable if I'm driving around that area, or you know, I go to visit my friends here and there. So to kind of see if your routes are covered by your provider. No, it hasn't. I know it's so that's another question. Like,
Driving here, and I drove from the north part of town all the way down here, and I've been able to keep my cell coverage. So I'm not sure this map would show that.
it probably won't, because red and orange looks bad, but it's still signal. Like only black will officially cut you out.
It's interesting. I think that you have to have a conversation or really clarify what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, it really doesn't people will drop in certain places, but, you know, live in the northern part of town and we can be out of town. I'm often on the phone almost the entire way, and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Data was hard. I was on a Zoom and got dropped off of Zoom, but when I make a telephone call, I can come all the way to my phone down. I can guarantee you the public shows right out.
Let's see where you are. Are you, so which provider do you use? Verizon, okay, so this is Verizon. Okay, here. So FYI, Verizon is the best. And with respect to, so 123. Okay, so let's see. So I believe this is,
Yeah,
that's it, right? So I'm traveling up this way, right? All the way up.
It's mostly margin of the kids, right? Where's Michigan? Yeah, see, there's Michigan. Michigan?
So this is Richards Corner,
Is that
Smithridge Lane. Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah, see, it says it's all red up there, and I can be on my phone the entire way of working. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I was on a Zoom call here and I got it part of the time, and not all the time, and that's heavy getting. Right?
Yeah.
On Zoom. And on my phone, in the car.
So yeah, so you won't be cut off necessarily.
So that's what I'm concerned
Yeah.
about. This doesn't really,
Mm-hmm.
tell people what their true.
Like how
I mean,
bad
if
it
I
is,
could be
yeah.
on a phone call, this,
Yeah.
to me, that would say I can't be on a phone call.
Well, out of all the places, 123 is actually not so bad. Like you get more in trouble here. So going like orange red, you're good. So I think we have to,
You can't switch on the street.
so what I can do, and this is a good actually addition, because this is so this is custom stuff that I created. We could conceivably, I have to think about, I could add some stuff to the code, so you could maybe type in the name of the street and it'll move the map and zoom at that point.
That would be, because like
Mhm.
I got a call from a resident and, on a street, and it says that the street would show coverage, but his house doesn't have it.
Mhm.
And so we talked to Verizon and they mentioned getting these terrible terms.
Are they amplifiers or?
It's an extender or something like that, and
It's like signal amplifiers,
inside of your house. femto,
Mm-hmm.
a femto, and it's kind of like a, I guess it extends the signal,
Mhm.
but you have to have like a wire, some kind of, set, like, wire that you have to get it going in the right direction to come into the femto box, and
Right. Mm-hmm.
this is like really, yeah, yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. And the representative said that, some people, they'll get the box and they don't get their extender wire positioned correctly or long enough.
Mm-hmm.
So like, everybody's gonna be slightly different. But that you can, go to Rich was at that meeting, and go there and get these, and it helps with the signal for people who have, diminished signal to the home. So,
Right. I think that would be a great idea if I can figure out how you can just enter your
yeah.
address
So
and.
it's in there,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise you're doing what you just do, you try and find 123 and,
Right,
search
right.
it up.
So yeah, you can do that. And I think, let's say if you end up here on this road somewhere, let's see, what is this? See, unfortunately, the dots, they block the street names a little bit. Okay, that's that's Greenlee Road. Ooh, I almost moved there. So that's Greenlee. That looks terrible. Okay, officially,
Can I just make one comment? I'm
Of
not
course.
sitting back here, not looking at the charts that closely. But from here, it looks like there are a number of places where there are towers. It's not even particularly green around those towers. Am I reading that right?
let's see. So some towers might be not towers, but antennas. So they might not have too much juice. So usually when you see something like, for instance, like this, there is some green and yellow around it. So that's a tower. But also, it's a limited range. So like 908 connections, that's very few connections. Like if it's a good tower, you'll get thousands of connections. So this to me looks like, and my next step is actually, because what I did is I allocated these myself, these towers / antennas. That's actually a question I wanted to ask Diana. Do you know if we have in town hall information on the towers in town? And
Yeah.
we do?
Yeah, I mean, we can get it. We can call.
Who can I contact?
Well, why don't you just, let me find out. I mean, I know like my admin has all the records from.
Cool. Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Because so this is around Saks. This is on Farm Road. There's something. I don't believe it's an actual full-fledged tower. I think this is an antenna of some sort. And there have been connections to it, but judging by how few connections, only 908 connections, it's something very underpowered and personal. Probably somebody has a business there and they just installed something. But you're right.
It looks like the water tower doesn't even go to Saks in terms of its coverage.
So water tower, I believe is this, right?
that looks like it, yeah.
So this thing is actually kind of cool. I was going to ask about that because this has 12,000 connections. This thing is very powerful.
Doesn't go very far.
Well, there's a lot of like
I mean, the big
yellow and
tower
orange.
doesn't make it across the street to Saks Mills.
I'm not sure what this is actually, these colors are.
Let's see. So this, so presumably, so this is Saks right here. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't go across the street. It's possible. Oh, you know why? I think topography is working against us. So I also have topography on this thing. Although this is on the tower, so it should show, so this is the part that the commission and I should investigate. Like what, we haven't exactly like examined and drawn conclusions of, you know, which towers affect, but the fact is that it did draw 12,000 connections. It does appear to be doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Geography it covers is de minimis.
It's,
Am I
yeah,
right?
yeah, you are reading it right, yeah.
So one
Mhm.
presumably could build the biggest tower in town and live like 2 houses away,
Mhm.
still wouldn't be in the green zone potential, as evidenced by this case history.
Yeah. Yeah, our topography is not great. Like Darien is doing so much better just because they're flatter than we are.
I'm not sure, is that correct though, is this, I'm not an expert on towers, but,
Mhm.
isn't it, like, when you're right next to it, it actually isn't the best
And
coverage.
then there would be a
It's out.
donut of green.
It's-
There would be
Mhm.
a
It
donut-
goes out.
there would be a donut of green in a while out.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of donuts
No.
around towers either.
Yeah.
So
You don't see a
one,
lot of green anywhere.
one thing that I did,
That's right.
that's the one thing that I did figure out is that we don't have a lot of 5G stuff. So most of these towers, they are 4G. So they're not broadcasting on a high number of frequencies. So I believe that if we actually, and I was on the call with you and Richard about with Verizon, are they planning to upgrade to
Yeah,
5G?
5G is, but they're also doing these small cells, so I've gotten a number of,
Mhm.
notifications of small cells that they're doing on the telephone poles, like up off of Ono and, maybe Conus, I forgot what, but so they're employing that strategy a little bit more in town
Mm-hmm.
to try and get some extra coverage.
So I think 5G is actually going to work better in a more predictable fashion, like the way you're describing, because the calls will be connected more consistently. Like the way this works is it's not going to improve the strength of the signal, but it's going to improve interference. Because what happens, on 4G, it broadcasts on a small number of frequency, and as soon as you kind of drive maybe like a little bit downhill, uphill, whatever, like you lose it. Whereas with 5G, it broadcasts on a high number of frequencies. And that way, it's like you fall out of one, you catch the other one, and it's like it creates consistency. So, you know, your calls don't get dropped, and you know the coverage improves. So that I think is going to help us, but again, I'm not sure what Verizon is doing, and Rich was going to tell us during our regular meetings, so he's going to let us in on like the upgrades that they're going to do. But this is, we have virtually no 5G. I think that's what you're observing on the picture. I think that's also impairing us. But I mean, you're right. Like when I was looking at it, I was like, well, shouldn't there be like a sea of green around the tower? And well, no, not so much. Although yellow has to be taken as good, but it is very small. So I'd say we're not quite ready with the story that we want to tell on this. We definitely want to, at our regular meeting next month, I think we should discuss how we present and what we do with this. Mhm.
We need to understand what that data is saying.
Mhm.
And sort of anecdotal, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one that's having that situation with the red and
Mhm.
the orange coverage.
Well, no, I mean, like around my house, I obviously peeked what my situation looks like. It's all red. It's all like super poor. But when, I mean, I clearly drive out of my house on the phone, not a problem. So do my calls occasionally drop? Sure, but not reliably so. Like
Yeah.
most of the time I'm okay. So we,
Like why okay, somebody can understand that is, because I would hate, I think once we put it out, it has to be very clear what the map is telling,
mhm.
you know?
So I think the only conclusive thing is black. Black is a blackout. That's it. Like that's, like there's nothing there. So like we saw Greenlee. I think that's, yeah. And I'm not even sure, oh, I guess they're like removed from all the towers. Because I also located the towers out of town that we connected to. So we connected to some in Stamford and Pound Ridge and Norwalk and Wilton. I mean, we're stealing everybody's signal, which is okay. Those towers are there. But, and you know, we're connecting to a bunch of Darien, a little bit in Greenwich. But what's also interesting, like if you look at this map, right? The bottom is definitely much better than the top, which is kind of predictable. Because we have a huge concentration of towers here, and then it's kind of, there's like very little here. But the interesting part is Rich was asking me to assess the density. So obviously this is the most dense part, and you can actually see, because what I did is I plotted the homes. So this is clear, like this part is clearly the most dense part, and then the houses spread out from here. So we covered the dense part of town. So if you ask me, this actually looks good.
It just doesn't look good based on the chart.
It does, no, like,
It says 4. Says it's all 4.
no, it's mostly orange and yellow.
Yeah, but orange is 4.
Orange is poor, but not very poor. They're still very poor.
Because I can't think of any times I've dropped calls like
Mhm.
in the center of town.
Right.
So I think you should just move all of the categories down a notch.
Should we just, yeah, should we do that?
And I think, I've never dropped a call in the center of town. I mean, yeah.
Because the reason why I went with this, and this is just, you know, as any,
It's relative.
exactly. So as any standard, it's purely arbitrary.
The center of town could be mostly green.
Right. So what we could do is, because like the gradations, they're like official gradations of, I forgot the name. It's, oh my God, hold on, I'm gonna look it up. 1 second. So this is the data. It's so there are three metrics that measure this cell, you know, quality. So there's the RSRP, which is the strength of the signal, RSRQ, which is the quality, and then there's a SINR, which is the interference. Okay, and they all have ranges. And those ranges, you know, so these are industry standards, and what they do is they break down, okay, so this range is excellent, good, you know, poor, whatever. But that's industry standard, you know, for whatever they're using it for. We don't have to go by that. We can come up with our own standard, which is like, hey, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? So I like actually your idea. We could easily just drop it down a notch and say, okay, excellent and good is excellent. And then poor will become good, and very poor will become poor, and black is still black. I think, yeah, sure.
Mark, researcher. One of the problems you're running into here is you're using descriptive terms that have implied values.
Mm-hmm,
It's like saying something tastes good or doesn't taste good.
right.
When you declare the standard what that is, you put a label on it, it biases the response to your.
Uh-huh,
By definition, if you label something poor, people are gonna think it's really bad. If statistically the reality is that it's maybe not so bad, it shouldn't be labeled poor. And trying to affix descriptor words to things that are not defined tends to be inherently misleading to the reader. That's basic market research language.
right. And I feel that using like industry terms that are kind of made for engineers are not good for marketing. So since we're actually facing the public, I think we should just redefine the terms and that's it.
Yeah, but again,
Yeah.
every time you take a term,
Uh-huh,
which there is an undefined, unclear definition of what that means,
uh-huh.
putting that term on anything is inherently misleading.
Oh, I
There's
see.
an implied meaning to it, but that is not made explicit in the key. Like, I think the average person who read this and saw something that said poor would think, oh, it's really bad service.
Right,
And it sounds like the reality is, if I understand you correctly, is poor is orange or yellow can be, orange can be not so bad.
right,
Then it should be, if anything, it should be not so bad and not poor.
right. So, no, I mean, I just
But
copied
you
it,
didn't-
yeah.
What's so bad? What's not so bad? How do you define that? One person's not so bad, might be another person's perfectly okay, might be somebody else's lousy. And you're running into a trap here when we're, again, you have terms that are not
Right, so
defined.
the terms are just copied from the cell providers. So this is cell provider standards, which are oriented towards engineers. So I think we should drop them and just use what, like you're saying, like something that's facing the public that actually is going to convey the right ideas versus, for engineering purposes, maybe it is poor. Mm-hmm, yeah, sounds good. No, I totally agree. So, yeah, I like that. So we'll redo the, I think it's gonna look better. And it's actually, hold up, let me just do something. Just because this is my code and I can totally change the ranges, what if I just quickly redo the test? Let's see. Bear with me for 1 second. I'll do it super quickly. That's the beauty of custom apps. I can just voice. Alrighty. Let me just do it. Okay, so we're gonna do Verizon, voice. And towers, okay. Perfect. And then I'm gonna redo the ranges. Green. Here we go. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is green, yellow. Okay, let's try something. All right. Wow. We'll tell Rich we did everything on the fly. All right. Awesome. And let's put it up. So Verizon voice. What do you think now? So what I've done is I made green and yellow into green. I made orange into yellow. Red and black I left as is. We could potentially change red to orange to make it less red. Because again, it's still signal.
I can't remember what Google has said. Like, I guess it would be good to get the committee back and to discuss
Mhm.
this, because I can't remember what they said about Ookla and the red section. What they said about that, you know,
Mhm.
what does that mean? Like, just call, like.
You still can,
Right, like, without dropping.
without dropping. You might drop, but
So is
you'll,
the distinction between red and yellow that you can get data in the yellow section?
so no, this is not data. So data is a separate file.
What you are capable of getting in each of the colors ought to be the descriptor of each of the colors, as opposed to adding the additional judgment whether that equals excellent, good, or
Mhm.
very.
Right, I think that, yeah, I think that's a very good idea, is that you have to really more narrowly define what. the
What's actually
colors-
measured.
What's being measured,
Mhm.
because otherwise it's like, I mean, I would look and say, oh my gosh, I can't make a call anywhere in town, and I very clearly can, and I live almost on the New York border.
Mhm. By the way, this is data. Data looks terrible. I don't think we should be showing data. Because look, when I zoom in, there's a ton of black everywhere. Black means no service. Like you won't be able to get data. So as you're driving, your data is going to be dropping. Do you see like there are like sprinkles of black everywhere?
Like I 123.
Mm-hmm. So this is it.
So that's data, so it's just orange, it's just saying,
Actually, go see to your house. It actually gets better.
well, look how my red is, like red.
No, but see, like this is orange. That means like you'll probably do okay. But like,
People look at the key and say, oh, that's poor,
Yeah,
but in fact, it sounds like it works pretty well.
yeah, I mean, it did
That
drop.
shouldn't be labeled as poor.
mhm, right.
Right.
So I can change. Also, I can change the red to orange to, and we
I don't
can.
think- I don't think
yeah.
it's like changing the colors, I think you need to go back to what,
But
I was like,
Mhm.
it's been a while.
it's all right.
Yeah.
I think you have to go back to what Clark is saying, is that you really need to more,
More descriptive terms. Yeah.
specifically define
Mhm.
what, like the orange means, not very poor, like, you're only gonna get, I don't know, an industry type definition that says, you know, you'll get so much.
At some point, somebody
waste.
had a definition.
Yeah.
We made different parts of the town, different
Right.
colors.
Right,
We need to go back to what that definition is and find a way to
Well,
communicate that definition. Understand.
the problem is those are Ookla's definitions. So Ookla is using the industry terms. So yeah, we should go back to our own,
what they, find or translate what they had into what.
into human. Yeah. Because, you know, I can, what I can do is, you know, I can change that legend to say something more marketably palatable, you know, like more human language, which means like, okay, you're driving in red. Oh, you can still make a call, like,
Going back to whatever the
Yeah.
definition was used for these different color areas or a sign. somebody had a definition, somebody made a decision, this one's red, this one's orange, this one's green, this one's yellow.
Mhm.
What was the criteria, or the criteria that were used for designating any given place in town as being one of those colors? And then figure out a way to make that definition, popularly understood.
Right.
But err on the side
Mhm.
of being accurate as opposed to simply make it easy to digest.
I see.
Einstein said things should be kept simple,
Mhm.
and no simpler than necessary.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, those are industry terms. We can find exactly what they mean easily. Yeah, that's not a problem. So that stuff is consistent because they've had it. They were using exactly the same ranges, and when I was looking it up with different providers, exact same ranges. So this stuff is like totally standardized, so we can find out exactly what each range corresponds to service-wise. Yeah, so we can humanize that language. Makes sense. Alrighty. So yeah, but just judging by multitude of black on that, the data is no bueno. And that's the best one. This is Verizon. That we can't really humanize. That's just no service. Wherever you see black. But the question that I'm thinking, so if Diana can drive all the way down with like a bunch of black inclusions and still retain a Zoom call, what if Ookla data is not accurate?
It did drop, so it did drop in certain
Mhm.
spots. So the Zoom call did drop in certain spots on the way, correct? Blanked out for a minute, and it did come back on.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, for the data, for the Zoom call, it wasn't.
It wasn't perfect. Okay.
For sure it wasn't.
Okay. Maybe they're accurate, yeah. Because obviously, if we had that picture for voice, I'd be like, oh my God, Diana, we need to fix things. This is terrible. But like, how many people are driving around town on Zoom?
No, I was trying to
Yeah.
get here and not drop my meeting, and I was.
Yeah.
at home.
So that's even look in the middle of town where like the coverage is the best. There's still a ton of black. Like right around the tower, there's black. This is really bad. So, okay, so that's pretty much the entire presentation. Definitely needs work before we put it out to people. I'll get those more expanded definitions of what things mean. That's pretty much it. If you can think of, oh, and the Zoom thingy. So like to enter like your address and it like,
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
being able to, for people to
yeah.
zoom in would be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
would be very.
Zoom specific address and expanded definitions of ranges. Awesome. So I think, we're moving along. Of course, I didn't realize it took so long to get here.
Well, there aren't very many people with your gifts and talents.
Thank you, thank you.
Not too
One
many
other
people
comment,
can
just
pull
from
up code in the middle of a
charting
meeting.
and statistics standpoint,
Sorry?
this one.
Yeah, of course.
From a charting and statistics standpoint, you've got excellent, good, poor, and very.
Uh-huh,
The relationship, I would imagine, between good and excellent is understood, and between poor and very poor is understood. somebody might argue that you need something between poor and good. If your kid comes home with a grade from school,
Uh,
where you say it's good, or it's the next step down,
Average.
or something, in the moral equivalent of, yeah, the middle ground.
mhm.
Just reflect probably the reality of what you think, because if my only choices are good or poor, then it just doesn't seem the way natural language, segments. things.
Yeah, I think, we will drop those terms and just use the expanded definitions. Yeah, I think that's better. Again, like this legend is from my code, so I can just put anything I want there. Yeah.
The important thing, trying to.
Yeah. No, of course. So, yeah, but the good news is like, we can literally make it into anything we want. Originally, we explored ArcGIS with Ty and Bond. And without getting too detailed requirements, because they were like, well, we're not really sure what you're looking for, like what kind of maps you're thinking of, whatever. So they quoted me something between $3,000 and $8,000 just to load the data. So I was like, oh, okay. And that's when I started thinking like what we need. And in the process of thinking, I actually did the maps myself. So I'm just going to call Time Bond and I don't know, cut them loose, I guess. Because
Yeah, talk to Rich.
I'll talk to Rich, yeah. Because Rich was like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. So I guess we can just keep the money.
Okay. You good?
Yeah, and as opposed to ArcGIS, this stuff is custom. So,
Yeah.
you guys keep brainstorming, anything, we can put there. Cool, of course. And you want to meet next week for the website?
Oh,
Yeah.
let's cut.
Yeah, okay.